federal government of Nigeria has defended its decision to hike passport fees to 100,000 naira for a 32-page booklet and 200,000 naira for the 64-page version.
The government says it's a move to curb corruption and ensure timely delivery. But critics call it a citizenship barrier that punishes the poor. So, is this reform or repression? Joining us for this discussion is Global Affairs Analyst Ejike Okpa. Good morning. Thank you very much for joining us.
Hey, good morning for keeping me awake. It's 2 a.m. in Dallas, but that's okay.
Thank you for always staying awake for us. It's always a pleasure to have you. From 35,000 naira to 100,000 naira in just over a year, there have been reactions to this, largely criticism. So let's get what side of the divide you stand on. Do you think that this is a laudable move by the government, or do you think that this is maybe not sustainable for the average Nigerian, especially amid rising inflation and unemployment?
You know, thank God I don't live in that country. I don't have to react to some of this stuff. But you know, I was in Nigeria last month, and I could see the suffering on the people. So when the government comes up and throw up numbers, you know, what I find sort of amazing, amusing, is this is a way to curb corruption. How do you curb corruption? By, you know, jacking up prices without considering the affordability of the people that you are trying to help. Granted that, you know, having a passport is not a right. You know, if you want it, you go for it. But also at the same time, the government has to be more reasonable and then be able to see what can the people afford to pay. So when you throw up 200,000 and 100,000, you look at the average Nigerian salary, 99% or 90-something% of Nigerians, you don't even have that in their savings account. So who are you trying to impress here, or who are you trying to support? When you say you are trying to curb corruption, how is that curbing corruption? You know, sometimes I take the time when I go to Nigeria, I don't come for vacation. I just want to go to the post office, you know, to government facilities to see how things are getting done. Sometimes I pretend as if I want the passport, and then they give you, you know, they give you 2 account numbers. You say, hey, send this money to me. And I say, is this money going to a public account, or is it going to, you say, you know, they say, oh, guy, if you want this stuff, you know, do as we say. If the government really want to do this, you know, they can set up a place where you said, okay, over time you can pay for that a passport, or you go to a particular bank, you pay, you know, you buy a coupon. You buy a coupon, and when you go to the passport office, you present that coupon as proof of payment, and then we can process your passport. But other than that, a lot of people are just pocketing government money. Even in U.S., if you go to the consulate office of Nigeria in Atlanta and New York and Washington, D.C., you're going to be ashamed of what Nigerian public servants do. You know, they pocket the government money. They tell you, hey, pay here, pay there. So I'm talking about the corruption aspect of it. If you really want to fight the corruption, make sure some of these people that are handing off different account numbers for payment are arrested and prosecuted. You know, you hear a lot of this, we're going to stop this, but nobody ever goes to jail for this. Nigerian government under Tinubu, if they are really serious about building confidence in what it is they're trying to do, they have to send some people to jail. And that jail has to serve as a deterrent. I mean, you know, you can do all of that, and those who have criminal minds will still end up doing this. But it's not fair on the Nigerian. At the airport, you see these things they do. When I was in Nigeria in July, you know, you could just watch how custom officers and immigration officers in your face do things that are just shameful about the image Nigeria is trying to craft.
Done, which in terms of payment, you've also related your experience that oftentimes 2 accounts are given, you have to pay here, and then you're told, do you want your passport or you don't want your passport? But there are also concerns about the cost, not just being 100,000 naira. The other concern is how many percentage of Nigerians can afford to pay that amount. Looking at the minimum wage, which is 70,000 naira, and the passport, which is 100,000 naira, how do we put it together and ensure that every single Nigerian can get that passport? Can you help us in comparison to how it's done over where you are in terms of getting your passport and ensuring that you do not have to break the bank?
Well, I mean, again, America is way ahead of, most countries when it comes to something like the passport. If I need a passport in America, I just go to the post office, fill out the form, and then, there's a request to do how soon do I want this passport? Do I want it in a day or do I want it in a month? What is my travel schedule? Once I give that, I get my passport. There are nothing bogus about doing it. It's an affordability thing. So what I'm saying, if you look at the minimum wage in Nigeria, how many Nigerians, like I said in my earlier comment, how many Nigerians have 100,000 naira, 200,000 naira in their savings account or current account that they can afford to easily pay? And when they pay that, they're not even sure that they're paying it to the proper government account. So how do you do this study? How do they come up with, it used to be 30-something thousand, all of a sudden, if it's 100,000, that's more than 100% increase. And then, for the 200,000, that's almost 5 times that amount. So I'm saying that Nigerians have to be able to go to their senator or go to their House members and complain about this stuff. But again, the senators and the House members or the politicians, they feel immune to the situation that is going on in Nigeria because they're the ones, like I said, they act like pimp. You know what the word pimp means. P-I-M-P is put in my pocket. And that is how the Nigerian government officials operate. It's very shameful, and in 21st century, they do it in your face. So affordability has to be relevant to the people in Nigeria, and that relevance has to address the 92% of Nigerians who cannot afford to pay for a lot of stuff. So don't come in and jacking prices on them at will without considering the impact on their other needs.
All right, let me put a tweet on the screen very quickly, and let's just see a clear explanation of this, and I'd like to ask a question around that. During the responses concerning the increase in the passport fee, you could take a look at the U.S. passport. It said it cost $165 for someone on a minimum wage of $7.25 per hour, and they earn about $1,160 a month if they do only one job, and so on. In the UK, £82.50. It's done online, £100, and so on and so forth. And then Nigeria. Now, you've been a global affairs analyst. You've seen how passports are done in different countries. And looking at it initially, I've asked the question how we can put that vis-a-vis what Nigerians earn on a monthly basis. But can we also look at it in terms of viability, in the sense that the passport is now 100,000 naira, and every single Nigerian is asked to pay that amount? How do you think this will impact on traveling and so on, especially for Nigerians who live outside of Nigeria and are looking to come to Nigeria to renew their passports and then go back? And also Nigerians who just went there to school and they have to come back and then go again. How would this impact on the economic, not forgetting to the impact on these Nigerians?
Well, I mean, that's a mouthful, the questions you ask. Comparatively, you have to look at things, in the specific geography. And in this case, I'm saying if a Nigerian is earning 70,000 naira a month, because you got to look at the minimum wage or the middle income, side of things. So if it's 70,000 in a year, that's 184,000 naira, and that is still less than $500 a year. So if a passport, let's say that particular Nigerian wants a passport, so the percentage of what he or she is going to pay for the passports is a huge chunk of the total ability of their earning. So that's what the government has to. At this stage, it doesn't even have to go that far. You could just make it a flat thing, 50,000 naira, or even give them opportunity to pay it over time. But for something like a travel, somebody has to have the means to be able to travel. The reason I became an American citizen, I didn't want to deal with this Nigerian thing. I didn't want to go and have to deal with people at the embassies or people at the consulate. That's why I elected 30 years ago to become an American citizen. Because if I'm traveling, if my passport is expired, I walk to the post office, within 24 hours, I can have it. and I can pay for it because, again, what they're charging me has nothing to do with my ability to earn. But in the case of Nigeria, like I said, they do this stuff either to discourage people from traveling or for the government staff. Nigerian government is actually not making a whole lot of money from what it is they do. It is the staff members that are pocketing this money, and nobody, not at the embassy level or the consulate level outside of Nigeria, has been indicted or sent to jail. So Nigeria has to be serious about the things they do, especially things that are affecting the average Nigerian. Remember my word here, average. It's not the rich Nigerian, it's not this or that, it's the average Nigerian. The Nigerian you see on the street every day. Can they afford to pay this stuff? And then that affordability has to be based on their ability to earn. And that ability to earn is the minimum wage of 70,000 naira a year, which amounts to 840,000 naira. That's not a whole lot of money because they still have to go home, pay rent, get feeding, support their family, So how much? So when 100,000 naira or 200,000 naira is a chunk of what it is they want to get a passport. Of course, it's a 1-year thing. When you get it, that passport might be a 5-year or 10-year thing. It's still a whole lot. So Nigeria government has to make it flexible and has to make it affordable. And that has to be to help and address the condition of the average Nigerian.
That there should be some form of subsidization of the passports, or maybe a differential measure of payment. So maybe we'll say that certain people, maybe low-income earners, even though I don't know how that will be determined, will pay less, or students will pay less. And is there any maybe argument, in a sense, the argument that the government has preferred? They say that this will help curb corruption and improve the quality and the delivery of the Nigerian passports. Do you see maybe any sense to that argument? Can you maybe align with it in some measure?
That's what I'm saying. How is jacking up prices go up to curb corruption? That's what I'm trying to figure out. How is that? If there was like a payment system to where they said, okay, if you need your passport, in 6 months, but you can't afford to pay it over time, one time when you show up at the passport office, here's a payment plan. Okay, 10,000, this, 5,000, this, as long as you pay into us. Once you achieve that number, then you can come in and your passport will, maybe we process it and we hold it until you finish making your payment. There's so many ways you can do it. In America, we don't do that because, again, $120 or $160 for most Americans is no money. And not many Americans actually travel, outside of the country, even within the country. But because of Nigerians' desire to leave because of the conditions in the country, those who want to leave voluntarily, then make it affordable for them. And that affordability has to be in the way you structure the payment and not as opposed to just, say, okay, I'm going to fight corruption, but at the same time, people are pocketing the money. I have evidence. Like I said, some of this I record, but I don't want to embarrass anybody. But I've been to Enugu passport office. I went to Abaliki passport office. I'm doing all of those things to convince myself about the frustration, the Nigerian government, imposes on its own people, even though they are pretending to say, hey, we're going to help out, we're improving our system. A system that is improved is a system that is done with less headache. And then also you have to factor in affordability. Affordability has to be an economic assessment based on the ability to earn and the ability to pay. Most Nigerians don't have 100,000 naira. You look at the statistical number. Most Nigerians don't have it, and if they have it, the question has to be: should I pay for passport, or should I pay for food, or pay for my health care, or pay for my accommodation? So make the payment, stretch it out. I don't know how long. Maybe you could say 3 months if you want. If you know you're going to travel in 3 months or 6 months, and this is what it is. Come in and pay 5,000 naira. You could go nominate banks in any particular. Go over there. Here's the federal government account. Pay it, get a receipt, and keep all those receipts. As you are paying it, it's being reported in the passport office that you are doing what? That you have paid. So when you show up, you could just sit down, take a picture. Your passport is processed. I can give you an example. One time I came to Nigeria. They say, oh, they have captured me, and all of these things. You just see how the system works. and I had to go. No, we don't have the booklet in Lagos. I mean, in Enugu, we have to go to Abakaliki. How is that possible? How is that something they should say? The passport book should be available in the offices. You don't have to add additional burden on the people. They have to travel across state line to go get the passport. So I don't know how they come up with 100,000. I don't know how they come up with 200,000. I just think that the legislative arm of Nigerians, especially the representatives who are supposed to be in direct contact with their constituents, should engage the Ministry of Foreign Affairs or the Immigration and say, hey, let's rethink this, or let's come up with another way to make it flexible for Nigerians to get their passport.
All right. I want to ask, what's your take on the fact that the current administration has been in power for 2 years plus and still counting, and yet Nigeria seems not to have ambassadors representing the country in different countries? In other words, even in the United States of America. What's your take on that?
Hey, have you, I mean, you see Tinubu. Tinubu goes everywhere. I mean, he just was in Japan, and then he was in Brazil. I don't think he has, he's focused on what it is he needs to do in order to delegate authority on his behalf, for the benefit of Nigeria. It makes you wonder if America is a country of interest to Nigeria, how come they don't have an ambassador? Is it because they haven't found a good candidate, or is it because the president through the foreign ministry haven't been able to screen somebody that would take that role? But, it's not a requirement. That means your diplomatic presence in the particular country, you don't have that. Ambassador is just, marginal. So, 2 years, I think Tinubu is more concerned about getting re-elected, but he's not so concerned about what he has done so far to make the Nigerians believe they have to give him another 4 years. Hey, 2 years remaining on his term is an eternity in politics. Maybe he will come out with something that will make Nigerians rally for him and put him back in office. I know, even whether he stays there or not doesn't really bother me. The thing is that I have ties in Nigeria. I'm not tied to Nigeria. When I come to Nigeria, I am saddened by the conditions I see family members and friends and classmates, and said, how should people live? Why should people live like this? Government's supposed to work hard in order to improve the condition of, no government is perfect and stuff. But when you see ministers like, what is his name, Wike, I want to call out his name, driving around in Rolls Royces, and other ministers doing things like they are going to airport. What signal are they trying to send to Nigeria? I mean, really, Rolls Royce is not even a car most wealthy people in America drive. The people that drive those cars are like athletes and entertainers. Wealthy people in America don't show off their cars. They show off what they do by their investment in their community, supporting schools, supporting healthcare, making sure that the policies, are geared towards making, life better for people, not showing off in Rolls Royce. I mean, come on. People should be able to call his ministers to order. So if any one of you embarrasses me with this thing, you're going to be fired. They serve at his pleasure, and he should not condone it. But if he will condone it, if he himself is engaged in things that make other people say, hey, if Oga on top is doing it, why shouldn't I, Oga on the bottom, do it? So, but that is what the message should be. He should call his ministers. He said, this is not a party. Nigerians are suffering. I don't want any one of you out there, attending parties and embarrassing, his administration. But again, it takes a will. It takes a will in a leader to call his errant people to order. And so far, Buhari didn't do it, Obasanjo didn't do it, Jonathan didn't do it. And so now Tinubu is doing it, but maybe Tinubu should be that angel that has an angle for a better Nigeria. But so far, he can't do it if it's all he's doing being Ajala. You guys know the expression, Ajala travel all over the world. And what has that got to do with anything? Stay at home, work with Nigerians, have your ambassadors, have your staff members do the job on your behalf. When it's very, very necessary, you show up. But a king doesn't show up at every party. A king has to manage their appearance in such a way, he becomes scarce. Scarcity creates value. That's a simple economic model. But in the case of Tinubu, he wants to be everywhere. I mean, how many times has he been out of the country since he's been in office? You go count it. So, that's part of the diplomacy. But and then what is Nigeria getting out of it?
All right.
Seriously, what is Nigeria getting out of it?
Mr. Ejike Okpa, it's a pleasure to have you. Very key questions you've asked there. And even as we've had this deep and necessary conversation about the increment of passport, it brings to mind again how we should prioritize as well the progress of our passport in international ratings. We're currently rating 88 on the Heli Passport Index, which looks like progress on the surface, but we still have access to 45 countries, either visa-free or visa on arrival. And, we are in Africa, we are only ahead of 6 countries: Democratic Republic of Congo, South Sudan, Eritrea. I mean, see the countries that we are literally ahead of. So we have a long way to go beyond focusing on price, but focusing on the quality and the power, influence, and access that our passport can grant us. Thank you so much for joining us this morning.
Well, thank you guys for always bringing the critical things. What the media is supposed to do is not to appease, is to provoke. If you don't provoke leadership, you are not making them sleepless. But if you are there praising them, I think Nigerian journalists have to have the ball, have to have the desire to say it the way it is. It's factual, it's not about opinion. Opinions are what Nigerians are always using. Talk about the facts. The facts just today is the most populous black nation in the world is seen as a nuisance. When I met Martin Luther King's wife, in 1999 at the reception for Obasanjo, you know what she said to me? If Nigeria were to be the symbol for the black race, that the black race is doomed. So 26 years after that statement, 26 years after democracy, ask yourself, where is Nigeria? If you had 1 million naira in 1999, you had almost $12,000. 26 years after the fact, 1 million naira is $600 and something. Anybody who's jumping up and down and beating their chest about Nigeria and doing well, obviously must have their head examined. That is what the measure is. It's not about the Rolls Royces, it's not about the big mansions. It's about what are the civil servants being paid, and they're able to support their family based on what they're getting paid. Thank you guys for always having me. I will be awake for you as long as we're going to be provoking some people and making them restless. Thank you.